The idea of managing a presidential campaign while juggling not just one, but could be many more indictments at the same time, that means showing up in court when you might need to be in another state. That means stretching resources when you're trying to pay for a presidential campaign effort.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, this trial date set forth by the judge in Florida will certainly impact Donald Trump's campaign. Donald Trump, a late May trial date means that for him, I mean, he's going to have to attend court showings, and it's going to absolutely impact his campaign trail. I know that late May, it's well after a lot of the primary contests. If we take a look at 2016, Senator Ted Cruz in early May had already dropped out of the race. Just a few weeks before that, I think it was pretty known that Trump would have been the nominee. So voters are really going to have to make a decision as to how will this trial date, the outcome, the potential outcome of the trial impact who they want to support in the primaries.
Having the date and time, so setting this moment to look forward to, do you think you'll start to see candidates pile on and attack the former president? Because they've been very resistant to do that.
I mean, I think that's a really good question. I mean, as you just said, if you look at a lot of the candidates right now, they've kind of shied away from attacking Trump. I was talking to a strategist, and he was saying, look, in any other election, this would be Christmas Day for most candidates. The front runner of, the race, has legal problems. But in this situation, they're not doing that. I think they're really afraid of agitating a lot of Trump supporters. And the strategist was telling me that, he's not sure there are many voters who can say, I really like Donald Trump, but I like how this candidate is defending the former president, so I'm going to vote for them. I don't know if that type of voter exists. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
Right, you're either with him or against him.
Exactly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these candidates are going to take this situation and use it in their advantage.
All right, let's add another voice to this conversation as we leave the bubble for a moment to bring in Bloomberg's Texas bureau chief, Julie Fine. Thanks for being with us here, Julie. I wonder your thoughts on this idea, because so far the indictments have actually helped Donald Trump raise money. They've helped him in the polls. When you start considering the idea, though, of trials happening in the throes of primary season, what does that do to change the equation, if anything?
Well, interesting, because if this had happened beforehand, if this had happened before Super Tuesday, again, this may have helped the former president, even though he didn't want to see the trial then. What can really be a problem here is if it happens after and the former president is now the nominee. This is completely uncharted territory. What happens if something comes out in the trial that may change something along the way? Then you could have a contested primary. So you're looking at a lot of things that we may not be expecting that now can happen with this later trial date, Joe.
Julie, how do you think this will go down outside of Washington? You come from and you're sitting in a very Republican state. Is this a moment you think individuals are going to coalesce around the former president? Or, like I asked a question, will they start attacking him?
Well, so far down in the southern states, so far you've seen actually the former president raise a lot of money. He gets a lot of support when there are indictments. So this will likely cause him to get more support, as it has in the past in certain regions, if we can see history repeating itself with the past indictments.
To consider adding a series of other indictments still is pretty remarkable when we put all of these together. One of the other big stories that we're following today actually coincides with the presidential campaign trail. And that's the use of AI. It's creeping into the conversation in so many different ways, whether it's advertisements, whether it's campaigns' use of chatbots to try to organize. And the White House today tried to get involved in this. Congress hasn't had an opportunity to make much progress on AI. Most lawmakers don't know how it works. The president may not either. But he did talk today about the path to regulating AI. Take a look.
In the weeks ahead, I'm going to continue to take executive action to help America lead the way toward responsible innovation. And we're going to work with both parties to develop appropriate legislation and regulation.
Christian, this is an interesting scenario because it requires a voluntary agreement on behalf of these AI companies, the titans of AI. We're at the White House today to help roll this out. But we've got a situation here where most of the players in Washington don't understand how it works. Most Americans don't understand how it works and can't really envision where we're going to be 5 years from now. Does this make you chuckle when we can't figure out a way to pay to fund the government? The idea of Washington somehow managing artificial intelligence?
I mean, I definitely think so. It's interesting because a lot of these, members of Congress really don't know how to approach the situation. It's very new. I think that it's going to take a lot of time for lawmakers to figure out how they want to handle it. You're seeing it on the campaign trail right now. Candidates are using AI to put together ads and target specific voters. So Congress is going to have to figure out how exactly are they going to handle this situation.
Yeah, and what we do see is some executives in this space actually want to engage with Congress to teach them this is how it works, this is how it could be manipulated. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, he was before Congress in May, and this is what he spoke about, the need for stronger guardrails. Take a listen.
We think that regulatory intervention by governments will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, and we want to be vocal about that. We want to work with the government to prevent that from happening.
So he says he's going to work with both parties, Julie. He also said that it can go quite wrong. You do already, as Joe said, see this creeping into the campaign. There was a super PAC supporting Governor Ron DeSantis. They went on the offensive against Trump and launching a new ad in Iowa, amplifying Trump's spat with the Republican governor, and AI was part of the mix. Is this something that journalists are now going to also have to become experts on when ads come out to make sure they're explaining to people that actually is not factual, that's artificially developed?
Yeah, I think that everybody's going to have to be on top of this much more to take a look at it, especially with the ongoing campaign. But here's what's very interesting about all of this. Even though these companies say they're going to be policing themselves, there's no standard regulation that they must follow. So everyone is going to have to educate themselves on what is a real image, what isn't, to make sure that you can decipher what's AI and what isn't. So yes, everybody's going to have to get much more knowledgeable on this, but on top of this, with no specific regulations. And it's fascinating that Congress hasn't come to something more solid because both Democrats and Republicans find this to be an issue.
This does appear to be one of the few bipartisan issues that we have. I talked with a Republican Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana earlier today on Bloomberg Radio on Sound On. Here's what he said.
The AI is a tool, and how do we use the tool? And that's where I think Washington potentially has a role, not to try and put a straitjacket on it, but rather just to make sure that we protect you, me, and all of us.
He also, though, said, Christian, that we're talking about guardrails. You think about actual guardrails on the road that you're driving on here. The difference is that we're simply asking people to promise to not drive off the road. We're not putting actual physical guardrails or barriers in place. That sounds like a pretty tough ask for Washington.
I think so. I mean, part of the problem is that a lot of these people just don't know really all about AI. They don't know the extent of what they can put up guardrails for.
Even if they did, though, we can't get anything done around here. Like I mentioned, a Congress that can't figure out how to fund the government. This is a big topic that would require a lot of lawmakers to drop partisan attitudes and work together on.
Absolutely.
We don't see that, do we?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be something that is going to require bipartisanship but it's going to be difficult. Yeah.